You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 56, and I am Clark of 5 Card Guys on Instagram. And with me co-hosting as always is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who's Trade You at Recess. All right, I am awful at making predictions on NBA games because I thought the Bucks would beat the Celtics. I thought the Suns would beat the Mavs, but as we know, it's the Celtics going on to the conference finals in the East and the Mavs going to the Western Conference Finals. So off the top, just want to quickly get your guys' thoughts on some of the key players who are still in the playoffs and what you think will happen to their card value. And also on the flip side, I want to know what your play is with some of the guys who are now out of the playoffs. But yeah, let's start with the two young studs, Luka and Tatum. You know, this is kind of the best case scenario so far, right? For those collecting either of them, to see them take the next step into the conference finals, well, especially for Luka. But yeah, what do you guys think of Luka cards, Tatum cards right now?
Man, it's Luka mania. Everybody was pulling out their Lukas. You know, I think
so many listed lately.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people, you know, wait for these moments. So it's like really cool to see, I guess, big time players kind of like clutch up like that, right? So
yeah,
like I'm happy that Luka did what he did because it's kind of needed in that space, right? In that hobby, especially Luka investors. Yeah.
I wanted whoever was going to win the Dallas Sun series. That's who I was going to cheer for all the way to the championship. So I guess I'm cheering for Luka, man. Like, I mean, I think everybody, you know, I don't think there are many Luka haters, but there might be in the hobby. There might be because everybody lost so much money on Luka.
Right.
But man, this is exactly, as a fan, as a hobbyist, whatever, this is exactly what you want to see. You want to see the young rising stars get their shine, get their moments, show exactly why everybody is projecting their potential and all of that stuff. So we're seeing it in front of our eyes. We're seeing Luka. He is just utterly dominating. You know, like anyone who matches up against him, no problem. Just dominates. Tatum, same thing. So it's just amazing to see, man. This is exactly what you want to see. It's awesome. In terms of their prices, obviously they're spiking. If you bought early, good on you guys. But right now, it's not you missed it, man. It's not the time to buy. Even if Luka or Tatum go on to win the championship, and I'm sure that'll, spike it even more. Mm-hmm. That's a tough bet to make, man. Number one, I think at this point it's still tough to see Luka win it all, and I think he could. He's already knocked off the Suns, but their prices are starting to. You have to remember they're starting to bake in the win, like they're starting to bake in the finals run, right? So that's just something to keep in mind as you're buying, because some people might think, you know what, it's gone up, but if he goes to the finals, maybe if he wins it, there's a new floor, and there is some truth to that, yes. But a lot of this pricing that's starting to increase right now does have some of that thought process baking in. So it's just something to keep in mind.
How about for geniuses like me that bought Luka and Tatum during the season on the dip? And
you cheer for them, Clark. You hold and cheer for them.
This is best case scenario for me personally, right? But but in all seriousness, like I do have a Luka and I do have a young, there are other collectors who have even higher end Lukas than I do, of course, and higher end Tatum. But just say, let's stick with the silver prisms because that's kind of the, a good standard. If you have it and one of them goes to the finals, what are you doing with that? Are you selling you think that's the peak and you're like selling, unloading at that point?
I think it's a good time to sell. I think it's an emotional market. Like we've been seeing that for the last, couple years, that it's all based on emotion. And, if you look at the long run, yeah, we could see kind of like a bullish trend on like Luka as long as he becomes, and these are little things that kind of, build his legacy, right? So these peaks are a perfect time to sell on stuff like what we talked about, a liquid Luka silver. That's why they're liquid. You want, that liquidity of being able to sell it at that volatility. In your sense, it would be the peak at that time, or hopefully you'd catch somewhat of the peak, right? So I think it's a great time to sell. If you have a lower numbered Luka, I would probably just enjoy the ride, right? At that point, right? You don't really care about those, those peaks and valleys really, because you believe in Luka, long term, right? So
right. Yeah, I not much to say. I would say, Clark, sell as well. Those are cards that are, number one, obviously liquid. Number two, if you take profits on them, I could see you getting back into it if you wanted to, really easily. They're not like impossible cards to get. And look at it this way: you sell your True Gem, Green Prism, Tatum, which is nice. It's also a beautiful PC piece. But the price you can get on it today versus off season, you can maybe use those profits to get into a PSA 10, right?
Right.
So you can also think of it that way, like coming back into it, but a higher version of because you're at the BGS True Gem. So yeah, I'm with Hyung. It's probably a great time to sell.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page, but I know it's difficult for some collectors to do that, right? Like they're just riding the high, and the emotions get into it. You're like, oh, this could go even higher, but it is a good lesson with those liquid cards. Like that's my whole plan. If that happens, I am selling and then waiting till the off season and maybe get back into a Luka or Tatum that is lower numbered, that might have seen a dip in the off season to get into just like even a better card.
I personally find that like you rarely buy the same card that you've been.
True, that's true.
You look for something a little better, right? Or something 100%, a little different, right?
For sure.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be like a different parallel of Luka, not a silver.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If somebody was Clark, if somebody was like you, and their max price on any big card was $2,500, and they went for that Luka, and that silver is now worth $3,500, you sell it, and in the off season, instead of getting back into a silver for $25, now you can go for something that was $35, right? It's something that you probably 2 months ago couldn't have imagined spending, but now you got that cash to go for, I don't know, like a Luka numbered, something that you can be like, okay, this is the card I really wanted to lock up in the safe, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, so you know which two teams I'm cheering for: Celtics and Mavs. So, let's go.
I think the hobby in general, man. If the hobby and in sports in general, you see Tatum Luka final, oh boy, that'd be
amazing,
incredible. Yeah.
Watch it be the Heat and Warriors, but and then I'll be like, why don't I have a Steph card yet?
Yeah.
So
all
true.
Right. On the other side, I'm looking at three guys who are out and might see a dip. And one of them I'm really looking at is Devin Booker, who his Panini Prism Silver PSA 10 was going for almost $3K during the Phoenix Suns run.
Right.
And I saw the last one just sold over $2K. So that was like an almost $1,000 drop within a couple of weeks. Are you guys still in on Book?
I'm definitely in on Book as a player, 1,000%. But cards are different, right? Like these are the periods where you start kind of questioning, okay, if Book doesn't win a championship and he plays for the next 6-7 years, like how is that going to look, right? You look at comparables to that and it kind of makes you kind of scratch your head and where the market usually goes, right? So Luka's a little different, I find. And that's why I think it's so crucial for Luka to build his legacy early on in his career, right? He has to separate himself from the Devin Bookers and himself if he wants to be considered that type of player. You need some personal brass with like MVPs, and you need hopefully a championship, right? So guys like Luka is a little different than Booker from an investing standpoint. I still like him. I think he's still cheap in general, but I just don't think he's gonna have that swing like the younger guys do usually. So long term, I think he's a great buy, but I don't think he might be a buy right now. His prices are definitely going to start cooling off this offseason. So I think there's definitely a buying opportunity with him. And sorry, who is the other?
CP3, his teammate.
Oh,
you think he's too old now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are, I think, kind of not liking the vibe. CP3 left, and it's going to be tough to kind of, I guess, bounce back. But at the same time, I think he has limited run cards. Like, it's not like he has a crazy print run. So I think it's gonna there is some kind of floor there.
Like his Topps Chrome, I think.
Yeah, his Topps Chrome's always like solid, right?
Yeah,
still going for 600-700, I think.
Right.
Yeah. How about you, John? For any of the Phoenix Suns guys?
You know what? If you were a holder of Booker and CP3, this is not a great day for you, for your investment, for your PC, whatever you want to look at it. If you've been looking for Booker like myself, it's great news, because I would imagine over the next little bit it'll finally come down. Like Booker has been expensive, in the last 24 months compared to peers that are of similar ilk and like young rising stars. Like I would put Booker in a very similar category to Tatum. But Booker prices have always been a little bit above Tatum, if not a lot above Tatum. And I never thought it was that warranted. I wasn't sure if it was, that whole Gary Vee back in the day when Gary Vee was like supremely influencing the sports card market. Right. And he sent out that IG post where he's got stacks and stacks of Bookers, and that thing like quadrupled overnight, and it just stayed up there, and it just kind of came down with the market, but it just continued to be really, really strong. And Tatum, about maybe a season and a half ago, 2 seasons, a lot of those prognosticators and talking heads were like, Tatum is the best player in the NBA. Like he was having some monstrous moments, and Booker hasn't had that. So I don't think he really deserved being higher than Tatum. So I think this is the correction that we're finally going to see where it comes down. In terms of what I think of Booker, it's tough, man. I think the narrative on him was like, he's like baby Kobe. Booker loves Kobe himself. So there's always that kind of comparison. But when you watched him, I think this year people are going to finally be like, I don't know, like it's one thing to say you're baby, you're like a baby Kobe, but you didn't really show it on the court. Like it was game time, time to go. Like we all know Kobe, we all know MJ, we all witnessed the greatness.
It's a mentality,
right? Yeah. Like you don't go into a game 7 and lose by 40 and drop 11 points. Like that doesn't happen to greatness, So I think that narrative and what everybody just witnessed is certainly going to take a hit on Booker and what people think of Booker and how much they're investing in Booker. And same with CP3. I think this is a big fallout moment for CP3 and his prices. If you love Chris Paul, and I mean his legacy of like being top 50 all time at NBA, it doesn't change for me in this moment. But I did like a bit of CP3 investments because you kind of have that feeling he might be able to finally be able to win. Now it looks like that window is truly closing on him. I don't know if next year it's going to be any easier or if he's going to be any better. So CP3, I don't think it's a time, I think you can wait. I think his price is going to go down big time. And if you're one of those types that likes investing in Dwayne Wade and Tim Duncan and sort of these all-time greats that have really low prices, and it's sort of like a long-term hold thing, I think that's the type of buyer to get into CP3. But if you're in the game to maybe make some profits in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe 24 months, CP3, he's not the guy anymore. I don't think he's the guy you put money into.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even put CP3 in the D Wade and Tim Duncan category. Like those guys have won championships, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think CP3 is going to. And I'm off of CP3 totally. He's for PC, sure, but not for any kind of investment type purposes.
Yeah.
He'll get into the Hall, but we don't see that Hall of Fame bump as much as we did before, even too, right? So with Booker, the one thing that he has going for him is his age. He's only 25.
Yeah, he's super young.
Mm-hmm.
And like I hope if his prices dip to amount because of all the reasons you mentioned, John, like, oh, is he really have that Mamba mentality to, like Kobe did, to perform in the playoffs? And if it dips down to a really low amount, I don't know, 15, 14, 1300,
Right.
that might be a good opportunity to get back in and then just really bet on Booker himself, because he's really talented, right? And maybe he needed this kind of experience in the playoffs again, and just to really get him going for the next time he's there. So I'm still in on Book, but yeah, I'm definitely waiting for his prices to dip even further. Not over 2K right now. Any quick thoughts on Giannis? He's one of those guys that doesn't seem to be getting a lot of respect in the hobby. Even when he won the championship last year, like we didn't really see a huge spike. Conversely, we didn't really see a huge dip either. But now that he's out, do you think his cards are going to dip even more? Or
I think you'll see a bit of off-season dip, but I think he's a long-term buy anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just gonna have a monster career. He's gonna break some records, and I think he's gonna get cheaper over the off-season, over the summer. So I think if you could get into a bigger Giannis card, I think now is the time to kind of set that budget aside. He's in a different category. He's super young too. As well, and he's won a championship. He's to me he's an absolute beast, right? He's one of those all-time greats that you're gonna look back, and I know John might disagree with this, but I think
no.
Yeah, he's a good off-season pickup for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what? The point I was making a long time ago about Giannis that I was obviously wrong on, is that I just didn't feel like Giannis was like that A1 superstar to lead his team to championship. Like, when the chips are down, 30 seconds left and you need a shot. I still believe Giannis is not really that guy. But that doesn't matter, because I think the difference between Giannis and somebody like Booker is the narrative on him. This loss didn't change anything about Giannis. I think everybody still views him as the best player in the world. It was just a tough loss. Boston was really good. It was more about Boston, and it was a lot on like Giannis didn't have any help. Like he needed his running mate. He needed his trigger man that gets those big baskets with like 20 seconds left. Chris Middleton. It was sorely missed. So it was one of those he's the best player in the world, but it was an unfortunate situation and he took a loss. So I don't think you'll probably see like a very normal off-season low, not like Giannis is crap, he's tanking, nothing like that. I think people still view him as the best player in the world, unless obviously Luka like wins the championship this year. Maybe Luka will step up in front of him, but I think Giannis still has that title. I think even if he were to retire right now, he could probably finish top 50 NBA. Like that's the kind of player he is. So I'm still completely fine with Giannis as an investment for whoever wants to go after him. I think this offseason, if you ever want to get into Giannis, I think with card prices, investment prices, the way the outlook of the world stock markets and stuff, like everything kind of possibly tumbling. If you have that disposable income, you always wanted a big Giannis card, perhaps there's going to be a time coming for you.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that, but yeah, if Giannis prices dip even a little bit, like I think I mentioned in a previous episode, he's kind of on my top 5 list of someone to get into my collection.
He's a good guy to like profit off, and move into a bigger card, profit off of like kind of like your other lower slabs that may not be more or meaningful, just because the market's, so down and you don't know the next couple months. You want to prep, that you're still going to have to pay for Giannis. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
So, get that money ready for the next couple months. Right. So
yeah, agreed. All right. That was a lengthier than usual off the top segment, but I thought it was interesting talk, just how the NBA playoffs have been going. But let's move on now then to hobby headlines. Okay, I know we don't generally like to focus on breakers or influencers in the hobby who are polarizing for one reason or another, because I think most of the time, I think you guys will agree, it boils down to you either love them and you will defend them at all costs, or you hate them and will bash them even if the news is all speculation. But I wanted to at least have the opportunity for us to address this whole issue with backyard breaks, because they have been dominating the hobby news lately, especially on social media. And I thought later we can address this issue even more broadly on, what we would want to see in this hobby when it comes to influencers and others with a bigger platform. So for context, and you guys can add details if I'm missing any afterwards, but for anyone that hasn't heard of Backyard Breaks, they're a sports card breaking group consisting of mainly younger guys. They give me a kind of a frat type vibe, and they're probably known mostly for when they did their promo break giveaway. I think several months ago, if you guys remember, they hit that Trevor Lawrence gold kaboom, and it appeared they were going to keep it instead when they hit that huge card. And then there was, of course, this huge backlash. Long story short, they ended up giving it away and also donating to charity to try to clean up their image. All right. They were also the ones that found the LeBron James triple logo man with that partnership on whatnot. And a lot of collectors were pretty upset about that. Then more recently, Card Porn accused them of scamming people in the breaks by using some bottom shuffling technique. I'm not even sure what that means, but it looks like they're trying to, give certain people better break spots. And now Josh Luber, the head of the Fanatics trading card division, did a break of Panini Prism basketball recently, and now people are just questioning if that was a wise move, to be associated with Backyard Breaks. And I don't know if you saw, but Backyard Breaks finally released a statement on their Instagram page addressing all of these issues against them, explaining their position and saying everything is above board. So I don't know where to start, but maybe we can look at this well, let me ask you, do you think all of this backlash is justified, or do you think the hate has gone too far? Your personal opinions.
Oh man, this is a can of worms. And by no means am I defending anybody. Everybody's responsible kind of for their own actions, right? And that's my whole point and whole issue on this is we, the people, create what we want in kind of the space, right? So I don't necessarily like the criticism that is given when people don't know context. Right. Because there's obviously a huge divide. If you look at the comments, there's half the people that, I wouldn't say half. There's a good amount of people that absolutely despise these guys.
Sure.
And then you have a healthy amount. I wouldn't say it's even, but a decent amount of people that defend Backyard Breaks. Right. So they're a bigger a breaker, so they have a huge following. So they've been
how big is
around,
their following, by the way?
I wouldn't know. It's pretty big.
It is pretty big. Even on YouTube, and they have tens of thousands, if not 100,000 followers on one of their platforms.
Yeah. So for me, I'm always in that space. You know what? People are gonna be people. Let them be people. If you don't like it, you have the choice to turn them off, right? And that's my whole point is this is all drama that is unneeded, but it's brought to the air. And you can't just say it's black and white. And I understand that people have their views on it. But there's always two sides to a story. And I don't think people are doing the hobby any justice by criticizing people. You got to understand scammers are going to scam, but if we all make sure that we stick together as a community and, focus on the positivity of it and not bring to light the doom and gloom of the hobby, it's not all doom and gloom, right? And that seems to always be the focus. And when it's kind of I don't know if you guys heard of the show Bling Empire. Yeah. It's the most ridiculous Netflix show. And there's that character, Kane, who's this billionaire who's basically causing the drama.
Right.
Really, there's no drama, but then you give a reason to kind of cause that drama, and it ends up being a bigger issue than it is. Mm-hmm. With that said, I'm not saying what happened with that whole Trevor Lawrence deal wasn't a big issue and scammers aren't a big issue. That's not my point. All I'm saying is from what I've heard, that whole situation was resolved it wasn't the right move by backyards. They're young, they make mistakes. So be it. That's how I view it, but obviously people don't feel this way, and everybody's justified to their own opinion. But for me, the beauty is we get the choice to kind of turn it off or not, right?
Yeah,
so for me, it's like you could go, honestly, I don't care, to be honest. Do what you want to do. I'm so concerned with my life and what I want to do, you know, and my next steps that I don't have time to criticize people. And that's my whole point is we're not doing the hobby any justice by criticizing people, regardless. And I think that negativity itself, I would like to see change because people are going to be people. You learn from your mistakes. Not everybody is perfect. And you kind of, you know, do you kind of be the best version of you, and you kind of can carry on, right? So that's kind of like the way I see the whole thing. Whether who's right and who's wrong, it's not for me and my place to judge, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I like that. Before you go, John, you know, when you say scammers are going to scam, I just want to make it clear. We're not saying backyard breaks are absolute scammers. We're just saying that there are scammers in this space, generally speaking.
And I want to clear that up because I've seen a lot in the comments saying they are scammers, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, this is where like even card porn has to be, you know, careful, because it's like you're literally creating a huge divide, but like half the people are saying no because what did they do? Yeah, they admitted to kind of like the Trevor Lawrence debacle, right? Yeah, their style is not liked by, you know, everybody, or more the older generation or whatever it might be, right? But that doesn't mean it's right or wrong, right? Is my whole point, right? So
yeah, noted. John, your thoughts?
Man, you know, I saw that video about the card shuffling. It's really hard to tell because the whoever made the video was kind of saying, you know, blah blah blah. You can notice the rough edge. It's always on the bottom. It's really hard to tell it's on the bottom, actually on the bottom. But you know, it's lower in the deck. So okay, they got a point there. Maybe there's something to this. Fine, whatever, yada yada yada. But other than that video, I don't know much about backyard breaks other than what we all see in social media and certain videos, and then them wearing like half tank tops and ripping their shirts off and stuff like that. And they're, you know, like you said, being kind of like frat boys, which is totally fine. They have their own following. I did watch the Trevor Lawrence video, the gold. You know, it's funny. I think it's kind of like what Hyung said, you know, like people need to be careful with their words because everybody's calling backyard, and I'm not defending them in any way. Like I don't really like them either. And, you know, based on what I've seen, but I don't think that necessarily, you know, maybe the truth will come out and they really are scammers. Who knows? But I thought the Trevor Lawrence stuff, they weren't scamming. They didn't scam anybody. They just, in push came to shove, and in that moment, you could see their greed take over the decision making,
right.
And their greed kind of muddling their integrity. That's what the moment was, right? They said, we're going to give this box away, but rather than just giving it away, let's rip it first and then we'll give it away. And they rip it, and it's a Trevor Lawrence gold. And like, maybe we'll just keep it, you know, like, so it showed, it's just a moment where it's like a really bad look on them. It looked bad. They're not scamming people. It just looked bad. And then they ended up being like, oh, okay, Vaughn, you know, we'll give it away. And they kind of like backpedaled. Just a bad moment for them. So, you know, like backyard breaks, it's everyone's cup of tea. Like I think Hyung nailed it too. Like he's car porn, these guys like coming out with like, you know, like allegations as if they're facts. Like I think that part, let's pull back the wagon a little bit. You know, let's be a little bit careful. And cause you know, like as much as you want to hate them, they have built a pretty big empire. They have, I don't know how much money they make, but I'm sure they make pretty good money. And for somebody like card porn, who also has a pretty good following and a pretty big influence, to go out there without completely knowing that they're absolute scammers and to be attempting to destroy somebody's business, you know, these are areas where we have to be really careful. So, you know, backyard breaks aside, I'm going to move on to Josh Luber. I think.
Okay, sure.
I think as much as I think Josh Luber does back them and say that, they're not scammers, blah, blah, blah. Clearly, this is a big, there's money and there's big money that could be involved here, right? Because of all the breakers, perhaps Josh Luber did his homework, and Backyard Break has the biggest following, or has a type of following that Luber is going after. Like this is the demographic that they want to target. So he's done his homework, but I think Backyard Breaks clearly is extremely polarizing, and I think whether good or bad, this is probably, for me, in my opinion, this is the first sort of like negative notch on Luber's belt. Maybe he doesn't mind taking it, because in the long run he sees, I'll take that hit and the business will be fine. But in terms of public perception on Josh Luber, he was, up to this point, he was kind of a saint. Like he's the golden child coming in. He's a big time hobby lover. He's gonna do he's gonna do everybody right. So I think this is gonna be his first little negative notch on his belt. And maybe this is better for him. Maybe this is better for the business in the long run. He's the genius, not me. Who knows? But yeah, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys in terms of, like, especially Hyung, when you're mentioning, like, just collectors in general that are really into the saga seem to be spending way too much time, in this negative space.
Right.
Right? Like they're just piling on to this, and it's, for no personal gain of their own. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they could probably spend their time doing something else, and like you guys, I'm not defending Backyard Breaks. Like you guys, they're not my cup of tea. I would never want to break with them. It's not my style. But they do have their following, and a lot of people obviously like the way they break. So, and I respect that, But for me, like, if there's any suspicion on any of their breaks, like even with that shuffling, the simple solution, I think you mentioned it already, Hyung, is like, don't take your business to them and just go to another breaker, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Life is a beautiful thing, man. Just experience it. Forget that. You don't need to engage in that.
But the thing is, like, there are some that they'll go to another breaker, sure, but they'll always come back to Backyard Breaks to see what they're doing. Like, why are you doing that?
Right. You're just asking. Like,
just move on completely, and
I get it from from a perspective of, they want to protect the hobby and stuff like that. Right. But usually you don't, I'm saying it doesn't work out that way. You're not protecting and you're not doing the hobby any justice, because you're basically shutting down the other side of the perspective, which is not, it's counterproductive. You're not going to get anywhere if you're just going to have your own perspective on the issue and not able to see everybody's kind of like perspective on it, right? And that's why I'm very neutral, honestly. Like, I'm with mostly everything, and that's why it's like, I think a lot of people react with emotion. As you could see, our whole market is volatile because of emotion, but we also react off emotions with comments. It's, why does it bug us so much? It's like, it shouldn't really, right? Yep. So it's like, honestly, go on eBay, go buy yourself a card, have some fun.
Yeah. And Josh, even if the shuffling thing is, if they were scamming, it's good that somebody brought it to light, because even if they were scamming or they were not scamming, that'll show Backyard Breaks, hey, as a business,
you can't mess around. People are looking at you.
Yeah, people are looking at us. Maybe this isn't the best way to be, random. Clearly, people realize, hey, if you're like literally shuffling with your hands, if you're good with cards, you can easily manipulate that. That's how magic tricks work. Your sleight of hand, like somebody has that quickness or has that ability to completely manipulate the cards. So that might make them change it, right? So it's good. Overall, maybe that'll make them, as a business decision, be like, you know what, we'll use a computer program that everybody knows, completely randomize it, and that'll change their business model, and maybe that'll be better for them in the long run anyways. So it's good in general for obviously people to point out these flawed systems that breakers and people might be using. But anyways.
No, for sure. That's a good point. And I'll just one more thing I'll add about Josh Luber. Like, I don't know if it was on his Instagram or if it was another platform, but he was getting a lot of slack, and he did respond to some of those comments saying he talked to the guys on Backyard Breaks, trying to get the whole story. And I think he does have more information than all those other people that are commenting, right? Like he has the perfect context. He has a better context and better perspective on the situation.
For sure.
And he's made his own decision on it.
And I think that's where it kind of gets polarizing, is because like hobbyists, like I'm telling you, it's one side of the spectrum, and then anybody new, it's basically they're stone's thrown. You know what I mean? Right. It's like it's two polarizing sides, and I think we need to find kind of like a middle ground, right? Where, people could enjoy the space still, what disappoints me is when people say, oh, I'm leaving the space because it's all negative. Right. That's not true, right? Like you're living that reality because you're consuming 100% of your time in that, right? So of course it's going to seem negative to you. But to me, it's like, I've seen great things come out of this hobby. I love talking, sports. I love staying engaged in sports. That's one part of me that, I'm more engaged than ever. I'm a sports fan. I'm a true, a fan of, these individual baseball talents too. Right. So it's, there's great stuff in the hobby still. Right. And it's even a bonus. You can't have it both ways. It's a bonus that, we've all profited some way and somehow, and we've all benefited from this some way, somehow. Right. So
Absolutely.
You can't take it all away saying that all these new investors are ruining the hobby, because we've all upgraded or we've all done something, bigger and better that, better our position in this space. Right. So.
Yeah, no, totally. And, again, just one quick note about Luber. Like, I think it probably is a more of a negative PR for him personally to be associated with Backyard Breaks. I don't blame him for wanting to do it. Like, I remember that Backyard Breaks actually bought a whole bunch of those Zero Cool V friends. Like, they were the number one buyers.
Right.
So that doesn't look too good on Luber either, right?
Yeah,
but
there's some connections.
Honestly, But honestly, like, if he does well with the Fanatics trading division, like, no one's gonna remember this. You know what I mean? And I think that's what Luber is probably thinking too. This is like a blip.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
right.
But yeah, I guess our general advice is to focus on the good of the hobby, because there is good in the hobby. Focus on what you actually love about the hobby and spend less time just in those darker spaces.
If you want that kind of drama, go watch Bling Empire on Netflix, because that is the drama you will get. It is unbelievable. It's cringeworthy, but like so addicting, so unbelievable.
I think we found that perfect solution. Go watch Bling Empire and get your fix there. Okay,
absolutely.
All right. I'm glad we talked about it at least and got that out in the open. All right, let's go on to a more fun and lighter segment. It's a new one we're calling Over Under. All right, essentially I'm going to name a card with a dollar amount, and you guys guess if you think the last sold price, according to the card ladder data that I have, was over or under the amount. Okay, so, and then we can see if there were any surprises and discuss if we think it's a good buying or selling opportunity. All right, you get the rules of the game.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay. You have to have the first one.
I'm just gonna figure out a way to distort the rules.
We'll see.
Okay. All right, first card: Nikola Jokic's 2015 Panini Prism Silver rookie card, PSA 10, so silver Prism. $2,500. Do you think the last sold price was over $2,500 or under $2,500?
Over.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it was under.
Okay.
Super soft market right now.
The last sold price was around $3,000, so it was over. It was over. But the reason why I wanted to bring up Jokic is like he won back-to-back MVPs. And we're wondering if there would be a spike or not.
Right.
pretty much zero spike, pretty much no action on the card. But
Right.
what do you think about the $3,000 figure where it is now?
I think it's justified. Like I
Okay.
think more than most players that we pay a premium for, you know, at that same kind of card, right? So
Yeah.
I think he's that second MVP just kind of like locks it up, right? And because 2015 was very low print run as well, right? So
True. Okay.
Ooh, I think it is rightly priced. I'm not gonna say it's like a. Actually, that's tough to. It's tough to say because as special as Jokic is, and I truly think he's a special player, he is still a big man, and we all know
Mm-hmm.
how big men affect the market, right? Like Embiid, Giannis, Tim Duncan, Shaq. That ceiling, we don't know it. You know, like it's not as lucrative as somebody like Luka and Tatum. So it's hard to say that it's an absolute steal. But when you're talking back to back MVPs, and he's not any normal center. Like this guy is actually fun to watch. He's got incredible basketball IQ. Um, it's tough to say. I think if like what Hyung was thinking, and maybe it's possible, if that card kind of starts to go like 25, 26, 23, man, I think the pop report, I don't know what the pop report is. I'm sure it's like 200 or 250 or something like that.
Slow.
Yeah, that would be a special. I think that would be an absolute steal. 3,000 still not that bad. I'm sure. What was the height of that card when the card market was crazy? Like 7,000, 8,000,
It was 6,000. Yeah.
6,000. Okay. Yeah, I don't
Pop count's
see
134.
130. Oh
yeah,
my
it's
goodness.
super low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a card that should be in the 4 to 5,000. Should be in the 4 to 5,000 range, but it's just not because it's.
For all
I
the
don't know.
reasons you
For
mentioned,
all the
yeah.
reasons I was mentioning, right? So, you know, it's hard to say that it's a steal.
But and that's the thing. Over time, I think everything will correct itself.
Right.
Right. It's just
Right.
a matter of time when right.
Yeah.
Well, if you just were to see the whole story 20 years down the road, right? You
Right.
just we're right in the middle. Just all these prices, right? So
Yeah.
I think long term, especially with a pop like 134,
Right.
like that's not a bad card to
It's
you
a
know
great,
what.
yeah.
Just
for sure.
stick in just forget about it. Just
Mhm.
stick it in the safe. You know, I think long term you'll do really, really well with that as an
Right.
investment.
I agree. If you're the type that has that kind of money around to lock up long term, and Jokic is one of your more priority buys, that is probably a perfect buy right there.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if it's a priority buy for a lot of people. So
That's the thing,
at that
yeah.
3K figure, I'm not buying. If it dips under 2,500, that's like closer to 2K. I might consider it, especially if he has another great season next year, right? Like
Right.
to add to his back-to-back MVP. Then I might really start thinking about it. All right, let's go on to Giannis. His 2013 Panini Prism base PSA 10. Pop count's about 2,700. I'm going to throw out the number 1,500. Over and under.
Under.
Yeah, I'll say under too.
Yeah, you're both right. Under, just 1,370 right now. You think that's a good price for his Prism base 2013? Because his Prism Silver is out of reach, right? For most
Right.
collectors.
I think it's pretty cheap, but I think it might dip even further down.
Okay.
But I still think it's cheap where it was because I remember it was floating
That
around
was
the
a
2K
monster card.
2K mark or so. I don't know if that was the peak or not, but
Yeah.
it was. I think it's going to
Close
retract a bit more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see it going down to maybe like 1,250, 1,150. I'm sure when you get kind of close to or under 1,100, you're going to see a ton of support. So I can't, it might be a way too big of a hot take to say it's going to go under 1,000. That might be a hot take segment. But I could see it kind of coming down a little bit more.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, hard to say like long term though, right? Because this whole like base narrative, that's
That's the thing. Yeah.
that's a tough part, right? Because this is just a base card. It's not like it's pop 5. You said, what is it? Pop 2200 or something?
27.
27.
42, yeah.
That's not, that's not super limited by any means.
Right.
It's not a lot, but it's not
then
super limited.
But these cards are kind of like those cards that kind of stay in PCs. I find it's not like people don't flip Giannis cards on the daily.
Sure.
As he grows his legacy. I mean, they did it with like LeBron Topps Chrome, I guess, but like it kind of, you don't see it every day, right? So I think a lot of people will it's a sound investment, because I think a lot of people are also seeing, maybe I'm not doing this the right way, because I think a lot of people are just looking for a quick buck and trying to make money within like a week or 2 weeks or months even, right? Instead of looking at it as, because when I look at an investment, I usually look at it long term, right? For the most part, obviously you have different cycles, but I think if a lot of people change their cycles, which they do over time on these like GOAT type players, as they build their legacy and their careers, I think people lock these kind of cards in the safe, and in their PC, so you don't see them as much. So I think there's going to be a point in time where that starts happening with even base on some, not like 20,000, but like pop 2,000. Yeah.
No, I can see it going the way that LeBron James Topps Chrome did, right? Like I think people started to sell it because it was at such a high valuation at that point, and they're like, I want to take my profits, because they probably got it for a lot less. Right, and I think Giannis, you could see those cards kind of, it'll definitely be more of a long-term hold, like you were mentioning, Hyung. Yeah. And I think, I do think it'll go down to close to 1,000 actually, probably in the off season. And that might be a good time to get it and then just hold for a long term, and then have Giannis build his legacy, because he's going to be a top player for many years to come. He's 26, 27 years old, right? So that's how I'm seeing Giannis cards in general.
You know what? I will counter that with, it's still the thing is, it's still a base, right? So as much as I think people they plan on holding it and locking it up, everybody at some point kind of gets maybe a little bit bored of their collection, or some things get a little bit stale, or you see the shiny new toy and you got to go after it, and you got to look at selling some big boy cards to get it. Yeah, this kind of card is the perfect card to sell. Number one, it's liquid, obviously, and number two, it's base. So I think everyone who has it long term, and we probably all agree with this sentiment, you will get bored of that card very easily. It's not a Giannis gold numbered out of 10. It's not a Giannis red numbered out of whatever. It's just a base. So I think.
What about a Kobe base Chrome?
Yeah,
you wouldn't keep it. You wouldn't keep it.
Yeah, you get bored of that, right?
You know what? To be honest, like the weird thing is that
in the PC,
I would too. Like the Kobe Chrome has been one of my all-time Grail cards. But if you're to ask me right now, if I were to chase one singular Grail card, as much as I've always wanted the Kobe, I still feel like there's some other cooler cards at the same price of a Kobe that I'd rather get than that, if I'm going to hold it and lock it up, right? Like a
fair enough
flawless RPA, maybe it's a lower grade, but it's a flawless RPA, jersey signature, all of that stuff, right? So I think, as much as we think the Giannis base could be a long-term lock, and it should be, rightfully so, it should be on that kind of strategy for a lot of people, but it's just such an easy card to get bored of, number one, and then use to sell for make profits and to get into something else, right? So it's just one of those, like, that's base. That's the whole point of base. It's a stepping stone kind of card, right?
No, I hear you, but like, even if you wanted to flip for higher end Giannis cards, like at that point when the Panini Prism base cards are 3 or 4x what they are now, those even higher ends, like those are out of reach. You can't flip it for, the silver. Those are going to go higher too, right?
So you have to do it with another player. Right. Essentially,
yeah, you can't. Exactly.
I agree. I agree with that point. So whoever is holding these Giannis Prisms, I think it'll take some really strong patience and willpower to actually hold it till it gets to that point where every Giannis card is completely out of reach. So the base game is the game to play, right? Yeah.
Just wait 5 years. Like I remember when I first got back into the hobby. Like I was looking to get a Giannis base Prism PSA 10, And I'm like, damn, $300 is a lot. Look where that's just 4 years ago, right? So who's to say in 4 or 5 years from now it'll be over 2K, maybe 2,500. Anyway, all right, we spend a lot of time on those two guys. I'm gonna throw out Joe Burrow, right? You forgot about him? Joe Burrow made it to the Super Bowl 2020. Yeah. Sorry, his 2020 Panini Prism silver rookie card, PSA 10. I'm gonna throw out the number 3,000.
3,000.
Jeez, I'm gonna say under.
That seems high. I'm gonna say under.
Yeah, you're both right. It's last sold for $2,640, so it has definitely gone down. Like during the Super Bowl run, it was going for $4K.
Yeah,
so
way too high, way too emotional,
way too
high. But now it's around $2,640 in the off season. You think it go down further, or
absolutely.
What's Herbert at Prism Silver? Do you guys know?
I want to say 2,000 or like low
2,100, something like that.
I could be totally off,
but yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, why? You think Herbert should be more or less than?
I think Herbert's a better buy than Burrow for sure.
I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Or I think they should be equal. So either Herbert is undervalued or Joe Burrow is still a little bit overvalued.
It's going for about the same, $3K.
Oh, wow.
Oh, about the same. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also, Burrow's
I think
lower.
both are. Yeah, Burrow's lower now.
Okay. Sorry, yeah, Burrow's lower by a few $100. Yeah.
Which it was before that whole Super Bowl run.
True.
Mm.
Yeah, it was the same.
I think people still believe Herbert is the better quarterback and has the skill set and the tools to be like a statistical monster over Joe Burrow, where Joe Burrow's kind of got that swagger. You know, he could be like it could be very similar to like Peyton Manning versus Brady early in their careers, right? Like Peyton Manning has all the numbers, he's breaking all of the touchdown and this and that, and just looking like a genius. Whereas Brady doesn't have the numbers, but he's getting the wins. He's producing the wins, right? So I could see kind of like a similar path. So, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think to be honest, I think both are still a bit high. I'm still not.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah.
If you're looking to long-term buy on, and I think they're great long-term buys, I'll put that out there. But I think there's still time for that. They're still in that early phase, that kind of like the quasi rookie. You know, we talked about the 1 to 3 year where there's still a lot of hype baked in. They're still in that hype phase. So I think if you're big on them anyways and you're long-term, those are fairly easy cards to get. You know, you could still wait 6 to 12 months, maybe another full season, and you'll probably see those cards start to come down a lot lower than what they are. My opinion.
Yeah. Or they could go up if they have another good season.
Yeah. And you totally missed the boat. I get it. Yeah, true.
It's a coin flip. But I'm not. I think we talked about Mahomes Opticalo, like going different set. Probably want to spend my $3K there instead of a couple of really young quarterbacks still that have a lot of potential. But football's a risky game, right? So anything can happen still. Okay, last two. We're going to baseball now. This, I know, Hyung, you're going to bring it up for your 1v1, so you'll probably know the answer right away. So I'll let John guess first. Okay. Manny Machado, because he's tearing up the league right now. If you didn't know, he's leading the league in WAR for 2022. So his 2010 first Bowman Chrome autograph rookie card base. We're going with BGS 9510. I'm throwing out 600. Over or under?
His Bowman.
Yeah, his first Bowman Chrome auto rookie card.
I have no idea. That sounds expensive because I remember looking at Manny Machado a long time ago, and his cards were so cheap, and I don't imagine they've gone up that much. I will say under.
Okay.
I'm saying under as well for sure.
Just under 500 still.
Yeah, which is
pretty cheap.
Is crazy. That's way too cheap. I personally think Manny Machado is an absolute buy, even right now in season. I think his cards are gonna be sucked up, and this guy is still super, super young. People don't realize he was in the league since he was 19, and he's been putting up crazy numbers. He's 29 years old, and he's he's halfway to 500. I could be totally off on that, but I could have just made that up. But he's to me, he's a future Hall of Famer, right? So yeah, he's super cheap. Yeah, 29. He's probably 11, 12 seasons in the league.
Yeah.
Right.
Buy.
No, that surprised me. That number really surprised me. Like,
yeah, it's super cheap.
With the season he's been having, and I know there was a lot of like, we talked about Machado before, and with Scotty, right, Baldwin, and just the hate on him from a lot of a lot of collectors is just unwarranted, and now he's having a great season. So
and you could see like kind of like the market correcting itself in many ways. Yeah. So these are the guys that I think still have super value, because these we use Hobby Logic to basically, or maybe not Hobby Logic, but maybe because he was too polarizing. Yeah. But over the long run, if the guy's gonna put up Hall of Fame numbers, at $500 for a first chrome, like Trout's 20,000 now. Like, is it that? I understand like Trout's Trout, right? But there's a little too much
huge discrepancy.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. The last guy for this over under segment, I wanted to pick a younger guy, a prospect, because you know how those prices are very highly volatile. Spencer Torkelson, 2020 Bowman Chrome autograph base rookie card. So his first Bowman Chrome in 2020. I'm going to go with the PSA 10 because I have more data on that. Throwing out the number 1,200. Over or under. And if you don't know, Torkelson's kind of struggling to start off.
Base auto.
Base auto.
That seems high. I'll say under.
Okay.
Yeah, that does seem a little high to me still, but Torkelson's prices were insane.
Right.
Right.
This is first pick overall. Absolutely mashed in AAA last year. Had like 30 home runs. Still somewhat young. Mm-hmm. He's still a big time prospect in Detroit's organization, but I think it's a little too high right now, especially with his market. I've seen his base chromes tumble a lot, so I'm gonna assume that 1,200's a lot, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's over, to be honest. Somewhere. Yeah, I'll say under.
Okay. Yeah, I have Torkelson on my fantasy team. He's on my bench right now. I'm just waiting for him to. I'm waiting for him to figure it out. But the last one sold for $1,525.
Holy.
So as prospects, right? People still believe they're holding on.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and I'm glad because I pulled the speckle out of 71, wow. And I'm just waiting for it to come back from SGC. So I'm like,
hopefully he'll get out of his slump by then too, right?
Man.
So,
and it doesn't go
to sell at that.
Doesn't go to zero. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like that's the thing with prospects, right? Like it takes time for them to get ready and to perform. You're
seeing it in Bobby Witt, like Julio Rodriguez,
right?
Yeah.
Torkelson struggling, and this year it's not the hitter's year. It's definitely a pitcher's year. So, on top of that, all these young prospects. I think J-Rod's doing the best out of all of them. So he's the head for the rookie of the year.
I got J-Rod on my fantasy, so yeah, he's stealing bases at least.
Stealing bases for you. You're getting those.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just add, I was totally wrong about Jarrett Kelenic this season. He got demoted back into the minors. Man.
Yeah. He had another rough start.
Jeez.
I mean, I think he's still too young to kind of give up on, but now it's like he has to start, producing. I think within the next season for him to be relevant in the hobby.
Is he getting into Keston territory?
Even worse.
Man, I hope not.
Below the Mendoza line.
Yeah, so it's we always knew it was a high risk game with prospects, but fun nonetheless. All right, that was our over under segment. Maybe we'll do it again, but it's interesting to see where prices are now compared to what they were even like a season ago. Let's finish off this show with our regular weekly segment called Pick One. And we're just doing the regular edition again today which is where we put up 2 cards and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, Hyung, you want to lead off?
Sure. I'll go since we talked about Manny Machado and how good of a deal he is.
Yeah.
If your budget is $500 or less, right? Would you pick a 2010 Bowman Chrome, his first Manny Machado auto BGS 95, or a 2009 Bowman Chrome first Freddie Freeman auto BGS 95, which sells for 500, just under 500 as well.
Wow, that's cheap.
So are you going with Machado or Freddie Freeman at this point in terms of an investment?
Man,
Hyung sold me on Manny Machado. I think it's an easy pick for me. You know what? I saved my thoughts for this segment. Manny Machado to me, and I was following baseball a lot more casually when he was popping off. He was huge. Obviously, his name was huge, but he so much reminds me of Bryce Harper, 2 up and coming monstrous studs, kind of in that kind of like Acuna, Tatis, Soto territory back in the day. They both got their monster contracts, and the moment they got their monster contracts, it just looked like their career was going downhill. Like that was the moment where, okay, they're kind of on the down slope of their careers. Bryce Harper, since then, and by the way, Bryce Harper obviously is also a polarizing character. Some people love him, some people hate him. He rubs people the wrong way, exactly like Manny Machado. They got that kind of swag, good or bad. It comes off as cocky, comes off as confident, whatever you want to call it. But Bryce Harper went down, and he's kind of having a resurgence. And I think it's looking like Manny Machado is on that exact same path. And I pick Machado because number one, I actually enjoy watching the kid. Like he's ridiculous. He's always been like a stud over at third base. And on the flip side, Freddie Freeman, I think a lot of people will say he's very supremely underrated for what he's been accomplishing over the last number of years. But I'll make the point about being polarizing. I think when you're polarizing, it means people are paying attention to you, good or bad. And I think a player like that has the potential to be volatile because people are actually paying attention to him, right? And as he starts to continue to build up numbers, kind of like a Carmelo Anthony, polarizing. But at the end of the day, if he ends up being on a Hall of Fame trajectory, he will get his due respect in a good way. And that sort of like volatility will catch up. People who maybe used to hate him are like, you know what? I used to hate the kid, but I can't deny him anymore. He's a stud, or he's a Hall of Famer for sure, right? So I think he has that ability for his cards to kind of really go up. Freddie Freeman obviously does too, but he's not a polarizing character. Like I don't think people are really like
he's the most nicest human being
exactly.
Ever in the
Like
world.
he's just kind of
good family man.
Yeah, like he's just I don't know if he's gonna have that volatility
Canadian.
until maybe at the very very end of his career, right? Like Joey Votto, Nolan Arenado, like these kind of like non-polarizing, very normal, solid, vanilla kind of players. So I think especially if this is investment, if it's not investment and you really love Freddie, go ahead. You really love Manny, go ahead. But we're talking investment here. I think Manny Machado is the pick.
Damn, that was a long answer first.
Yeah, sorry,
that was
man.
a detailed breakdown.
I like it.
He believes in Manny Machado. Noted.
I don't even have to say much because I also agree with John for many of the reasons he mentioned. It really was down to like, do I go with the guy that some people really don't like, or do I go with the guy that is absolutely boring and no one really talks about, but he's an absolute stud for true baseball fans.
Yeah.
And I think in the hobby, just like John was saying, when you're in the spotlight, and I feel like the game's going that way. Look at the guys like Tatis and Acuna, and loud, brash guys, and I think that's the way the league's going to be going over the next several years. And Machado fits in better with that kind of image of MLB, and I think he's. I think I said it before. He's kind of was the prototype for Tatis, like the guy who was like he ruffled the opposing pitchers the wrong way just by his swagger. and now it's more accepted. You know what I mean? And I think Machado's should get some of the credit for that. And especially when he was a 19-year-old kid. So yeah, I'm going with Machado. Although I love Freeman, he's always underrated, like you guys were mentioning. But in the hobby, when you're kind of a little bit forgotten and a little bit boring, that kind of limits your the high value amount. So I'm going with Machado.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. But Freddie Freeman, I think he's super undervalued and
yeah,
he has a ridiculous resume as well. But yeah, Machado, I think he's something special, and he's fun to watch. I honestly don't understand. Like, a good sign for me is, how as a 29-year-old, his numbers are the best they've ever been. And for me, it's like, whoa, this next 5 years could potentially be his best years. And if that's a sign, then it could really take off as his career, because he's already had an amazing career, and he's 29 years old, right? So
right.
For me, if he keeps this up for the next couple years, which is a positive sign, usually you show regression by the time you're 30. Trout doesn't seem to be missing a beat. That's another good sign that, Trout's on a great trajectory if he wins his 4th MVP, right? So, yeah, Machado, it's an easy one for me. I like the swag, even though Freddie Freeman's a Canadian kid at heart, and we got to support our Canadian kids. He's just too vanilla for me in this market. So I'm going Manny Machado.
Machado sweep. All right. Johnny, you're next.
Yep. I got what seems to be a hobby darling right now, and a dead wrong segment for me. I picked Nikhil Alexander Walker over this guy at the beginning of the season, like an idiot. But I'm going Jordan Poole. Right now, who are you investing in, Jordan Poole or Tyler Hero?
Man.
Tyler Hero, once a darling. I think he's completely off everybody's radar now. I think people probably say he's a pretty good player, but I don't think people are putting money into Tyler Hero anymore.
Go ahead, Clark.
Oh boy, man, I was here's the thing. I was wrong about Jordan Poole. I thought he was like a flash in the pan, and he's definitely better than I expected, and I was right about Tyler Hero. Like, I was always on Tyler Hero. Like, he won 6th man of the year. Like, I knew he had that potential.
Right.
But when it comes to the hobby, like, who will get more love? Like, Hero's kind of polarizing too, in a way, although his image is kind of softened. He's been kind of quiet this past season, right? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a tough call.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go with my heart, Tyler Hero.
Ooh,
like my head says
still in his heart.
My head says Poole, like, he's playing with Curry, but when Curry's gone, I still question how Poole would, how good would Poole be without Curry? Like, he's getting a lot of open looks because of who he plays with, Curry, Clay, all those guys, right? So that certainly helps. Whereas Hero, I still like his swag, and he's still playing off the bench, but I think he has he could take the next step. I could see him as a starter, if not next season or for another team. But I still like the upside potential of Hero, so I'm going with Tyler.
Yeah, for me, short term, I like Jordan Poole. I think long term, I do like Hero. Hero's building an empire, believe it or not. Like, he's not only a basketball player; he's super young. He's managing with the family. He's showing up to basketball and performing for the most part. He's been solid for Miami and integral for their success. Especially giving the starters the minutes they need, and he just literally cleaning up the buckets. So for me, it's like he's doing that while running his empire in his business, his image on, Instagram and that whole deal, that whole life, the celebrity life. Believe it or not, that's your brand too, because some people choose not to be like that, but that's fine. And some people, like Tyler Hero, choose to be that character. And I think overall in a digital world and a world run in capitalism and marketing, I think Tyler Hero is going to get bigger looks in the future as well, because he's doing incredible things at a really early age. He's only 22 years old, I believe. So for me, it's like, yeah, both are young and both are risky. I like Jordan Poole short term because he was super cheap before. So if he continues to impress over the next couple of years, he has a lot of catching up to do in terms of his pricing. I don't know where Poole's prices were before, but before the season they're dirt cheap, right? There's yeah.
I think our buys were at like $100 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning, he was one of the guys on the radar that were good buys because he was just so cheap, right? And it was a coin flip if he could click. He was going to be successful with Clay and Steph. So, I think short term, I'm gonna say Jordan Poole, and then long term, I guess I can't do that, right? But you know me, I'm gonna break the rules, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with my heart too, Tyler Hero.
Yes, yes.
Oh man, Jordan Poole. I mentioned that I always felt he was kind of like when the Raptors had Norman Powell, where the kid puts up like 30 points 4 days in a row, and then he'll go like 9 points. He just won't. Has that ceiling and potential, but just doesn't put up the consistency. You are kind of seeing that in Jordan Poole, but I was shocked this year where he had a couple of like big games where all eyes were on Golden State for those moments. And he produced, and he became like this hobby darling out of nowhere, right? He was one of the cards that were really blossoming during a pretty rough market, right? So he really shocked me. I think his prices are way too high for who he is. And there's a lot of people out there in comments that are like, Jordan Poole, he's the real deal, man. He's showing he's the real deal. Kind of agree with it, I guess. Like he's going to be like a very solid contributor. I don't know if he's, maybe I'm still completely underestimating him, maybe, but I feel like his prices are a bit too high. Tyler Hero, on the other hand, I get the struggle. Like Clark, you were saying, you struggle because in your heart you want to. It seems like an easy pick, but Tyler Hero has just fallen so off of hobby love. He's way off now. I don't know what it's gonna take for people to get back on that wagon. He had a pretty amazing year. He put up some big time numbers. Next year, maybe he becomes a starter. It was kind of unfair. Like Tyler Hero is actually a starter, but
he is a starter on any
they
team.
utilized him in the sixth man for the whole year consistently. Maybe it was for the purpose of the award. I don't know, but we knew like kid's gonna get the award because he's a starter. He's a starter clearly.
But so Butler and Lowry, they're getting old, so I'm sure Hero will get his opportunities soon.
So I would assume he's going to be a starter next year. He's got the award, so he'll go starter next year. So maybe he'll have a bigger year. I don't know, but I don't know I'm a little bit suspect on what it's going to take for Tyler Hero, but I will still pick Tyler Hero because I think Jordan Poole prices are a bit too high right now.
Okay. So Hero sweep. All right, let's see if we can sweep this last 1v1, which is mine. Ja Morant Silver Prism PSA 10, which is last sold for around $1,200. And we talked about him before. Devin Booker, his Silver Prism rookie card PSA 10, was sold for just over $2,000. And I chose these two because both of them, since they've exited the playoffs, have seen a tremendous drop, from 3K to 2K. And then more so for Ja Morant, who was like at $2,500 for some recent sales during the Memphis Grizzlies run. And now we're seeing it at $1,200. So a bigger drop. But if you're going to choose one, which one are you trying to capitalize on?
Man, it's almost the same situation. I think Booker obviously is the better long-term investment, but Ja Morant at $1,200 is insane where that price is to where it used to be. And we talked about the short printed, I guess, silvers. We were talking about Ja. Yeah, maybe right. PSA 10s. They're super, super low pop, or at least compared to the Zions. Or was it the year before?
I think the
can't
year
remember.
before, right?
Yeah, the year before. So I like the 1,200 price point. The Josh Silver. I think he's going to be more volatile than Booker in the short term. So I think he's going to be a better buy at 1,200.
Okay, and the pop count for Jazz Silver PSA 10 is about 1340.
Okay, that's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's getting up there.
I'm gonna
agree. Compared to Devin Booker's PSA 10
probably
Silver, pop count's 188.
Wow.
188,
Yeah.
jeez.
I might take that back, but now that I know the pop count, but yeah, like I still think Ja's gonna bring more volatility at this point, so I'll stick with my answer, even though the pop counts are wonky.
Yeah. Listen, I think both could be great buys in the offseason. I could see John Morant Prism Silver kind of flirting with like under 1,000 in the offseason. I could also see Booker Prism Silver kind of floating 1,750, 1,600 maybe. And at that point, that's probably a great buy as well. I still like I think Booker did some serious damage. Obviously, CP3 he's taking the biggest heat, which is lucky for Booker because he's kind of quietly taking a bit of heat. But I think the image of Booker, like we talked earlier in the episode, I think it's taking a bit of a hit, and I don't think people are going to be as supremely confident in spending big money on Booker this offseason. So I could see this card kind of coming down. So I'm at 2,100 still a bit too high for me. Like I would love to have this card, and it's on my radar, but 2,100, I still think there's a lot for it to come down. Especially like comparing him to Tatum. Like we said, I get the pop count is a little bit different, but Tatum card is also probably around that price. Maybe it's a bit higher now, but Tatum card used to be at $850 Prism Silver. Like if you took advantage of it, good for you. Whereas Booker was at $3,000, and if you look at the two young stars, who of the two look like they can carry a team to a championship? I think clearly people are going to be like, yeah, it's Tatum. So I think Booker prices have a lot to come down. I think Jaws, keep an eye on it, but 12 is pretty low. I think it can go to 950, 1,000. I like the Jaw better at these two prices.
Okay. It's going to be a Jazz sweep, so we got the triple sweep for 1v1. But after I saw that pop count, I almost changed my mind. Yeah. Like 188 is super low for a Silver Prism. And even Tatum, I just looked, his Silver Prism PSA 10 pop count's about 758. Right? So it's in the middle between Devin Booker and Ja. But I feel like for the short term, the volatility, I could see it swing way back up. If Morant has another couple of great 40-point games, some highlight reel dunks, it'll be liquid. Right, at higher prices. So I'm going to take advantage of that. All right, we'll cut this here because I know this episode's been running a bit longer. But we appreciate everyone listening to our podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, we appreciate if you do, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you give us 5 stars. It will help us out a lot. And we'll see you again next Tuesday for another new episode. Thanks, bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.